Downhill running, everybody's favorite, but also where many of the injuries occur. Speed, momentum, additional downward force, add in obstacles, rocks, loose dirt, distracting tree branches, yeah, it can get crazy. Reminds me of that paradox. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? In this case, you may not be an unstoppable force, no matter how good you feel. In this video, I'm going to talk about the 5 techniques that I use to run technical downhill trails. Let's now head over to this other location so we can talk about the techniques. Hi, my name is Scott Miller. This is Trail Ambitions. I'm going to trip on my face. Hi, my name is Scott Miller, and this is Trail Ambitions. I talk about things that may improve your trail running. For those of you that have seen my other videos, you'll notice that these techniques are building on each other. Now, each of these topics do introduce something new for the specific case, but all the previous techniques apply and work together to make you an efficient trail runner. First, let's discuss some of the technical trail running foundational techniques that apply with technical downhill. In particular, for fast downhill running, I'd highlight the following techniques. Relax your body and breathe into your muscles. For fast technical downhill running, you need to be fluid. You need to be able to react very quickly because things will be coming at you very quickly. With downhill running, things happen more quickly than normal. A relaxed and fluid body will help you react quicker. And also remember, breathing is critical. Sometimes if it's a technical section, people may hold their breath as they're trying to work through it because they're in somewhat of a panic mode. But you want to get to the point where you can breathe evenly through even the most technical of situations. Because sometimes those technical situations aren't short. They may last for a period of time, especially out here in the Rockies. So being able to breathe as you work through technical downhill will give your muscles the oxygen that they need to stay reactive, stay responsive, and help you through the technical situations. And on the other end of that, breathing too rapidly is also a problem because then you end up expelling more of the oxygen that your muscles need. So if you're very tired or you're just came up a steep hill and you're breathing very rapidly, you want to make sure that you're breathing into your belly and not your chest. Chest breathing, you'll have to end up having to take short breaths because it's hard to push your chest cavity out, where belly breathing, you can get bigger breaths. So being able to breathe big breaths into the belly will relax you, make you more fluid, and as a result, be more responsive to the things that come at you in a much more rapid state as you're heading down technical trails. And I know I've said this before, but getting into a flow state is extremely important. When you're coming downhill on technical trail, you need to have all of your mental focus on that trail. In that flow state, you have full focus on what you're doing. So focusing on that trail is utmost important on technical downhill. Things are happening quickly and you need 100% of your focus on that trail. You can quickly react to anything that pops up, whether it's a loose rock that moves out of the way or one that you didn't see and you trip on it and you have to recover. So being able to be in a fluid, relaxed state with 100% focus on that trail is how you run technical downhill trails. And I go into a lot more detail on all of these fundamental techniques in my other videos. So I'll include a link to those in the description, as well as I'll include one at the end to the playlist that can walk you through all those videos. As far as running downhill on technical trail, there are 5 specific techniques that I would call out as things that I focus on the most. First is foot placement and shock absorption. Again, coming downhill, there's a lot of extra weight being pushed down on your knees and your feet and your hips and quads and so forth. So how you land on the ground and how you absorb that additional impact is very important. The added weight that you are impacting the ground with is serious. It's much more than other types of running. It is also happening at a much faster rate. So reaction time can be an issue, which is why more injuries occur with this type of running. So first, stay on your midfoot with your center of gravity underneath you, not leaning back, but rather more of an aggressive stance. It should feel like a controlled fall, but as it gets steeper, you should be more neutral not leaning forward, but more neutral. So perpendicular to what's level versus perpendicular to the angle or the degrade that you're going down. So it's a very natural centered position. You want to strike the ground underneath you, so not holding back and not reaching. So it's a very neutral strike position. And leverage your calf and your quads to absorb the impact. Running fast downhill can be fun, but it does take a toll on your body. Using good running technique to absorb the additional impact from day one is how you are able to do it and continue to do it long term. Foot placement. You want to have a midfoot strike, even coming downhill. So you land on the middle of the ball of your feet, and then you absorb. So you're landing in the middle of your foot here, and then you're absorbing. So you're absorbing with your calf and your quads. So you don't want to heel strike, because that's going to put a lot of pressure on your knees and your hips. By landing midfoot, you're allowing yourself to absorb. So when you're coming downhill, you're absorbing like this. That way, the additional weight of gravity from coming downhill is being absorbed by your calves and your quads, as opposed to hitting and then jarring each of these points. So if you're finding that your knees hurt a lot or your hips hurt a lot after doing a lot of technical down, you definitely want to revisit your foot placement. So you come down, you're absorbing. So everything I'm doing is absorbing. So it's like jumping. You would never jump like this. You would never jump and land on the back of your foot. It just doesn't make sense. That's why you jump like this. You have this springy motion, and that's what you're looking for when you're coming down technical trails. Number 2 is scanning the trail in front of you. I typically scan 5 to 7 feet in front of me, but when running downhill, where you're moving faster, I extend that out to 5 to 10 feet. The ability to identify problem situations in advance to give you the reaction time that you need is very important, and probably one of the top skills to have or work on, and also continuing to be able to do that as fatigue sets in or takes over. Next is scanning the trail in front of you. So you're looking down the trail, not at your feet down here. You're looking 5 to 7 or 5 to 10 feet out. Normally on a flat trail, I'm looking 5 to 7 feet out. Here, because I'll be moving faster with more pressure, I want more awareness of what's coming at me. So I'm looking out a little bit further. So scanning kind of 5 to 10 feet out. And I'm looking for a path that naturally flows. So we call these rocks baby heads. So they're basically the size of a baby head. And as you can see here, landing on these, they're gonna move. So you're looking for foot placement between those rocks that's not going to shift or slide out. And when you have a very congested area like we do here, it's kind of difficult to find, but you'll see that there's places where people have traveled more, so it's more knocked down. So these rocks are more stable than what you see on the side here. So what I'm looking for is scanning in front of me so I can react. If I come over a lip and I'm not familiar with that area yet because I haven't been able to scan it, I'm looking for places, I'm scanning out here so that I have time to adjust my route based on what I'm seeing. So the next is scanning 5 to 10 feet out and kind of looking and basically putting in your mind where your feet placements are, where your foot placement is going to go. Number 3 is managing your speed by changing your cadence and stride length. Running speed comes from 2 things: cadence, how quickly you turn over your feet, and stride length, the distance between your front foot and your back foot while running. The longer your stride and the faster your cadence, the faster you will go. And remember to extend your stride behind you, not in front of you. Extending in front of you would cause you to overstride and perhaps hurt your knees. And with the additional weight of coming downhill, you don't want to put even more pressure on your knees. So landing underneath you with a shorter stride and extending that stride behind you is ideal for technical downhill trail. When or if you do want to increase your speed, you want to slightly lean from your ankles, not your waist, but from your ankles. Think of it like an accelerator pedal in your vehicle. So slightly leaning forward from your ankles will give you that forward lean, and slightly pulling back will slow you down. Now, on technical downhill, you're going to do that much less because obviously you're already going downhill. Gravity will help you move faster. So taking these techniques and using gravity and a slight lean to pull you down, but always maintaining more of a vertical neutral position on the downhill, especially steep downhill. Use the stutter step or a more rapid, shorter stride if you need to slow yourself down, and then allow gravity to extend your stride behind you to increase your speed. Next is running speed. So you want to manage your speed when you're going downhill, because obviously if you get going too fast, you're going to fall. You're going to hit something that was unexpected, or you're going to switch from that I'm relaxed and I'm flowing down this trail to I'm in panic mode, I have to stop immediately, and that's usually when bad things happen. So being able to stay in control of your mind, be calm, that's where the breathing technique comes in. But it's really about being able to control your speed. So to do that, you adjust your cadence. So my cadence is quick to begin with, but then I can go faster, or I can go back to my normal. So by going faster, I'm actually putting more contact in the ground. By increasing your cadence to more of a stutter step, I'm making more contact with the ground. So when you're running fast, your stride length could be 3 feet or so. That's a lot of ground that you're covering and a lot of scanning that you're having to do. So at times you may find this is too technical. I'm not able to process my scans quick enough to determine, where I need to go. So I need to slow myself down. So the best way to do that is to do an aggressive stutter step. And what a stutter step looks like is this. So I'm coming down, and then I want to do a stutter step like that. So that quick stutter step is impacting the ground quickly, and each time I impact the ground, I'm essentially braking. So rather than trying to do one big, stop and then stop, that's where knees end up going, that's where hips get upset with you. But by stutter stepping, you're able to control your speed, slow yourself down, all while in control. So when you brake, if I were to brake aggressively on a rock like this and it gave way, who knows what's going to happen. But if I do small steps, even if I'm stepping on these loose rocks, I'm only there for a brief second. I'm using that rock, in a sense, to kind of push into the ground, and then I'm off of it. So there's less of a chance that that's going to slide out because I'm only briefly there as I'm stutter stepping. So when you're flying down a technical trail and you need to slow down, you need to gain control, maybe you're feeling out of control because you've come into it too fast, the stutter step is the best way to regain that control with confidence, because you didn't stop, so you didn't jar anything, you just slowed yourself down. Now your mind caught back up, you're back in control, and you can continue on. So you're not really even breaking stride. It's just a quick stutter step, slow yourself down, regain your confidence, regain your scanning, and then continue on. Number 4 is think like a downhill skier or boarder. For those of you that have never skied or snowboarded before, you rarely are on the bottoms of your skis. You're usually on the outside or inside edge. And you're basically carving from side to side. that edge gives you much more stability. And it also gives you some indication of if you're going to fall or wipe out, which way you're going to do that. I use a similar technique when running technical trails downhill. Try to zigzag a little bit rather than running straight down. This reduces the mental and physical burden on your body by making a fall direction more predictable. If you run straight down the middle, an obstacle could send you falling either direction, left or right. If you are zigzagging, your weight will be distributed in one direction or the other. So the obstacle is more likely to cause you to fall in the direction of your weight. And therefore you can focus your attention on that particular side as you are zigging and zagging. So you're basically focused on one side, then the other side, then back to the other side. And this will cut your reaction time in half, which will give you a better chance of catching yourself if you do fall. And I'm not talking about a big zig or zag here. I'm talking about a subtle, slight back and forth movement, just enough to shift your weight. And in cases where the ground is steep enough, where water has run down the trail, you will notice that the water actually makes somewhat of a zigzag type motion as well. And so sometimes just following the flow of the water will give you that flow, or perhaps going against the water. So if the zig is this way, you can go up on the banks and so forth. Acting like a flowing river, which I've talked about, the visualization that I use in previous videos, it kind of aligns very nicely with this. So as you are flowing down the trail, especially when it gets steep and technical, you are flowing like a river flows, back and forth. The next technique is to think like a downhill skier. So, or boarder, if that's what you are. When you are skiing, you rarely are on both skis flat at the same time. And the reason why is because you have less stability. In fact, and also if you were to fall, you have no idea which way you're going to go. If you are riding an edge this way, more of my weight is facing that way. So if I slide out, I have an idea which way I'm going. Same way as I'm come back. Most of my weight is on my left, so therefore I'm pushing into the ground that way. I use a similar technique when I am running technical trails like this. So I'm looking at more of, rather than a straight line, I'm looking for a gradual slalom. So basically I'm coming down here, I'm shifting over to here, and then shifting back to here. So it's not an aggressive, wide slalom. It's a very narrow, but back and forth. If you look at water flowing down a river, it goes similar type of thing. So if the ground is steep enough where water has run down it, chances are the trail will have a natural zig and zag to it. So you could follow that, or you could run opposite of that, whatever is more comfortable, or how deep the water has, eroded the ground. But by zigging and zagging, like when I'm going this way, my weight's pushing down that way. I'm somewhat, not really leaning, but I'm more leaning this way. So the weight is kind of on the inside. So if I were to step on a rock and it gives out, much higher probability that I'm going to fall this way than that way. I mean, if I could trip and go that way, but again, probability-wise, I'm going to hit something and slide this way. And if I'm coming back this way, I might hit something over here that will slide out, but chances are I'm going to fall this way. So if I can determine or increase the probability of which direction I'm going to fall, I then can focus more of my strength and my balance in my body to prevent a fall in that direction. And that's what I'm doing here, is I am giving my mind focus to one side of my body over here, and then this side over here, and then back over here. And so as I'm doing that coming down the trail, I'm not thinking about if I fall, I have to be prepared for every possibility. I've now cut that in half. So it's less fatigue on your mind, less fatigue on your body by increasing the probability of which way you might fall if you were to trip. therefore allowing yourself or enabling yourself to be more prepared to catch yourself in that direction as opposed to both. Now, obviously there's you could go over the edge the other way, and that's usually a pretty nasty wreck when that happens, but being able to cut that in half is a huge mental burden release in a sense. So it's something I do all the time. And number 5 is run quietly. The more quiet you are, the less impact you are making to the ground. If you are hitting the ground very hard and you're hearing your foot slap against the ground, you are putting a lot of energy into the ground. The technique I use is to try to run quietly, where I'm not slamming the ground. I'm basically hitting the ground, absorbing that energy through my calf and quad muscles as shock absorbers, and then pushing off. So the sound that I'm making is much less than if I slam my foot against the ground. This is a subtle thing, but I've kind of used it as the center of my running technique. So if I had to sum up everything that I do on the trails, on the roads, everywhere, it's I try to run quietly. And I feel running quietly is running correctly. When you hear my feet hitting the ground, it's inefficient. I'm running inaccurately. When you can hear your feet hitting the ground, or the louder that you hear your feet hitting the ground, the less efficient you are. So therefore, the more quiet you run, the less impact you're putting on your body. Heel striking tends to cause your foot to land and then slap against the ground. Now, granted, heel striking technique would be to roll through, but when you're trying to run fast, or especially run downhill, you tend to hit and then slap the ground. That slapping makes a loud noise. When I hear that, I know I'm heel striking. When I do that, I then want to position my feet back up on the midfoot, so I'm landing midfoot and not heel striking, slapping. The slapping part also is resistance. So it's hitting the ground, it's resisting against the ground. Therefore, I'm not able to propel myself as quickly when I am slapping the ground. Whereas if I'm midfoot striking, I have a very smooth forward lean, a forward flow. And so there's no braking happening when you slap your foot and then have to move over it. It's basically a nice flow, almost like a rolling ball. Running quietly, in my mind, is running efficiently. When you are doing everything correctly and in the most efficient way, you'll be making the least amount of foot sound. Now, running aggressively on technical terrain does make running quietly more challenging, but it is the best technique that I've found that helps me determine whether I'm running correctly or not. So when I get tired, I listen to my feet and I ask myself, can I make them quieter? And in the process of doing that, I then reposition to a more efficient running gait. And lastly is running quietly. If I had to sum everything up that all my techniques, it can come down to one thing: run quietly. And what I mean by that is the sound that you make when you're impacting the ground. So if you're landing on a heel and coming through on your front foot, you have this slap of your front foot. And you'll see that times when people are running very quickly down a long descent, is that you'll hear this slapping sound, more so like on a hard surface like a dirt road or even a paved road. And those that are more efficient tend to land midfoot and kind of glide. So that slapping versus gliding is efficiency. A glide is much more efficient than a slap. So when I'm running down trails, roads, or what have you, I'm listening to my foot as it hits the ground. And I try to make it as quiet as possible. In order to do that, I have to land midfoot. I have to absorb everything into my quad and my calf so that it's more shock absorbent. When I'm coming down a technical trail, I see it more as a dance. And a dance, you're light on your feet. So I'm kind of flowing back and forth, light on my feet, making as little sound as possible. Now, obviously you can't be completely quiet, and it's not the end all be all, but it can tell you a lot about how you are hitting the ground and whether you're absorbing a lot of impact into your joints or into your muscles. So as you come down, it's about being quiet and maybe listening to the other people with you and maybe hearing their feet over yours versus this slap. If you're hearing a slap like that, you're putting a lot of impact into the ground. You're absorbing that in the opposite reaction somewhere, usually in your joints. So being light on your feet, absorbing everything in your muscles, allows you to be light on your feet. When you're light and efficient, you're using less energy. That energy can then be used to focus on the trail, stay confident, and use the techniques that I've been talking about. So really, number 5, run quietly. When I get tired, I always ask myself the question, can I be more quiet? Can I run making less sound? And then I try to do that. And usually when I do that, I find myself reorientating myself with that midfoot strike, striking underneath me, forward lean from my ankles, a controlled fall. And it's more efficient. I then feel better and I become less tired. So you can do the same thing when you're coming down the technical trails like this. It just takes a little bit more work, and maybe you can't be quite as quiet as you can on a road or a flat surface, but it's still part of the technique of being efficient, being graceful. Running gracefully is running quietly, within control, and flowing down the trail. Okay, those are my 5 techniques. If you have any questions or thoughts on this topic, please leave a comment below. I would greatly appreciate it, and I'm sure others would as well. And while you're down there, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching.